Long before the concept of a single god, long before cathedrals, commandments, Bibles and sacred texts, the ancient Greeks gazed across the horizon, the vast oceans, and into the random chaos of human nature, and organized what they saw by giving it names in the form of divine gods. They crafted rich stories, divine personalities, and a complex pantheon filled with stories and mythos by which a person could help guide them through a world that very often made no sense to the average human. Although there were over 400 gods in ancient Greece, there were 12 main gods who lived on Mount Olympus. Their names were Zeus, the king of the gods, ruler of the sky, lightning and thunder; Hera, the queen of the gods, goddess of marriage, childbirth and family; Poseidon, the god of the sea, earthquakes and horses; Demeter, the goddess of agriculture, harvest and fertility; Athena, the goddess of wisdom, warfare and crafts; Apollo, the god of music, poetry, light and healing; Artemis, the goddess of the hunt, wilderness and wild animals; Ares, the god of war, violence and bloodshed; Hephaestus, the god of fire, blacksmiths and metalworking; Aphrodite, the goddess of love, beauty, pleasure and procreation; Hermes, the messenger of the gods, god of trade, travel and communication; and Dionysus, the god of wine, revelry and theatre, although some include Hestia, the goddess of the hearth and home, as the 12th Olympian god. Either one can be included as the 12th Olympian. But they were more than just mere gods, much more. They were the embodiment of everything terrifying, magnificent, and unknowable about the world and human nature. The Greek god system wasn't born out of superstition. It was born out of the deepest human need to explain the unexplainable, to give order to chaos, and to imagine a world where the divine wasn't distant and silent, but vividly present and always involved, for good or for worse. The origins of the Greek Pantheon are tangled in both myth and early Mediterranean history. Many scholars trace their roots to a fusion of Indo-European sky gods and local pre-Greek deities, evolving as different cultures merged across the Aegean. From this confluence of belief systems emerged a mythological hierarchy that was staggeringly complex and yet profoundly human. These weren't perfect gods. They lied, cheated, murdered, loved, raged, and wept. In them, mortals could see reflections of themselves, scaled to cosmic proportions, and perhaps that is why they endured. The central narrative structure was one of drama and power. At the dawn of all things in ancient Greek mythology, there was chaos, the yawning void. From chaos emerged primordial entities: Gaia, the earth; Uranus, the sky; and Tartarus, the abyss. Gaia and Uranus gave birth to the Titans, immensely powerful beings who ruled before the Olympians. But power, in Greek mythology, is never permanent. Cronus, one of the Titans, overthrew Uranus. Then Cronus, in fear of a prophecy that his own son would do the same, devoured each of his children at birth, until Rhea, his wife, hid away one infant. That child was Zeus. With thunder in his blood, rebellion in his heart and full of rage, Zeus would rise, force Cronus to return his siblings Poseidon, Hades, Hera, Demeter and Hestia, and then lead them in war against the Titans. The Olympians triumphed, banishing the Titans to the abyss and taking their place as the new rulers of existence. Olympus became their throne, the cosmos their stage. From there, the great theatre of mythology truly began. But the Greek god system wasn't just about who ruled the heavens. It was about how the divine intersected with every corner of mortal life. There was a god or goddess for every human impulse, every fear, every hope. Ares was the brutal god of war, thirsty for blood. Apollo was the god of music, poetry, light and prophecy, a radiant emblem of reason and divine order whose brilliance offered clarity but little compassion. Artemis hunted the forests, while Aphrodite intoxicated the world with desire. Athena, born fully formed from Zeus's forehead, was wisdom and war in perfect symmetry. Dionysus brought madness and ecstasy. Hades kept quiet dominion over the dead. and Hermes, the trickster, moved between worlds like a breeze between temples. The Greeks didn't worship their gods out of blind devotion. They bargained with them, feared them, tried to earn their favor and avoid their wrath. Temples were built as offerings, not sanctuaries. Sacrifices weren't just traditions, they were insurance policies. A storm at sea was the god Poseidon displaying his anger. If a child was born deformed, it was considered a message from the gods that must be heeded. Mythology wasn't just storytelling, it was a user's manual for ancient Greek life. Every epic tale, every tragedy, every lesson from the gods was a mirror held up to human nature, flawed, passionate, and hungry for meaning. And this belief system didn't just stay and manifest themselves in temples and scrolls. It shaped every aspect of ancient Greek society. The Olympic Games were held in honor of Zeus, the most mightiest, respected, and feared god of all, the king of all the gods. The arts flourished under the patronage of Apollo and the Muses. Law and governance were often justified through divine will, and philosophers like Plato and Socrates often used myth to explain ethics and metaphysics. Religion, politics, philosophy, and daily life in ancient Greece were not separate domains, they were braided together through the thread of their divine mythology. The gods were also critical in everything that dealt with waging war and military actions. Before launching a campaign, generals would consult oracles or even sacrifice animals, so they could see some kind of divine sign or message which was considered to be wisdom from the gods, to be applied during times of war. Greek cities competed over patronage from the gods, hoping for divine favor that would bring prosperity to their people. Athens prided itself on Athena, while Corinth adored Aphrodite. This divine favoritism created a fierce sense of identity and purpose, a belief that the gods had a stake in mortal affairs, and that a city's fortune could rise or fall based on divine whim. But, as with all ancient belief systems, time and intellectual pursuits is the biggest enemy of any belief system born from superstition and myth. The rise of rational thinking and science began to chip away at the literal belief and existence in the gods. Philosophers questioned the morality of the deities and ancient Greek society's dependence on stories of old. Eventually, it was Christianity that swept through the Greek world, recasting Zeus as a relic of old and Olympus as pure myth. The temples fell, the statues of these once great Greek gods crumbled. The idea of sacrifice slowly faded, and yet these ancient Greek gods never vanished. They endured. Their legend transformed and adapted to a changing world. They became rich and inspiring stories instead of sermons, symbols instead of objects of worship. Today, the Greek gods live on, not in temples, but in literature, cinema, art, and pop culture. Even modern psychology borrows heavily from Greek mythos, such as the Oedipus complex. It's the story of Oedipus, the king of Thebes who unknowingly killed his father and married his mother. The concept of narcissism stems from Greek mythology with the story of Narcissus, a beautiful youth who fell in love with his own reflection. The word panic is derived from the Greek god Pan, who was known for causing sudden and overwhelming fear in humans and animals alike. Corporations invoke Hermes for speed, Nike for victory. Authors and filmmakers reimagine the gods endlessly, from Homer to Hesiod, from Rick Riordan's novels to Marvel movies and TV shows. But why is it that these ancient Greek gods still captivate us, and society as a whole? It's because the Greek gods were never just gods. They were archetypes, profound psychological truths carved into myth and human nature. They represent the endless tension between reason and instinct, order and chaos, hubris and humility. They teach us that power corrupts, that fate is both cruel and inevitable, that wisdom must often be earned through suffering. They dramatize our deepest fears and our wildest dreams. And in an age of algorithms and artificial intelligence, they remain a reminder of something ancient and essential, that stories shape civilizations, and powerful myths never really die. They are real-life reflections of the human condition. The Greek Pantheon was not a perfect system, but rather contradictory, chaotic, morally tangled. But this is why it has endured for thousands of years. It didn't try to paint a picture of perfect virtue. It painted a picture of humanity through the eyes of the divine that was flawed, glorious, tragic, and epic. And in doing so, it offered the world not just religion, but a mythology that continues to breathe life into our imagination, our minds, and our ambitions. From the marble columns of forgotten temples to the glowing screens of our digital age, the gods of Greece have never died or faded into memory. In every thunderclap, every dream of heroism, every story of downfall and redemption, their legend awakens and comes alive. Immortal not just in legend, but in our dreams, desires, and our imaginations. I'd like to thank you for investigating the amazing rich history of the ancient Greek gods with us, and I invite you back for our next episode of The Rise of Humans.